This off. It's just a couple minutes past 1:30. First of all, welcome to the event today. I think it's an exciting topic, and we've got a lot of great speakers and panelists today to share information about what's happening in the industrial hemp space. Because I think everybody has questions about what's happening with this this emerging crop, and hopefully we'll provide some answers today, as well as some ability to show resources and also just to give a timeline or framework in terms of when answers are coming or where we might find answers in the future. Hemp, as we think about it, as we look back and as is seen in the report, it has a long history, right? But we talk about this as an emerging crop. So I think there's a lot that we're learning as we go, but we can also look back in some ways historically around hemp's use and the different applications that it's been used for, and just how we look at that from a production and a value-added standpoint. As we look at our neighbor to the north, they've had hemp legalized since 1998. All right, so there's things that we can learn from Canada as well. It's been legal in Europe and other countries in Asia. So there are some examples out there that as we look for hemp as well. But it's very exciting to have this crop as an opportunity now in the United States through the 2014 Farm Bill and the pilot programs, and then through the 2018 Farm Bill as well, which really advance, and I think will advance the adoption of hemp as we look at our opportunities and the economics of it as well. So just maybe before I kick things off, a little bit about AURI. The Agricultural Utilization Research Institute. So we are a 30-year-old organization that was established in the 1980s through the Minnesota State Legislature. They are still a key partner of ours and work to advance agricultural opportunities in the value-added space. So as we look at what we can provide from a technical service standpoint for business consultations to public education goods and information reports, we do a lot of convening events like this as well to get information out about new opportunities and ideas that we think can add value to the agricultural industry here in the state and across the region. We do that through our laboratories and our staff that are scattered throughout the entire state of Minnesota, with facilities and laboratories in Crookston, Marshall, and Waseca, Minnesota, then as well as a presence here in the metro area. And you'll be hearing from several AURI delegates and staff as we go through the day today. So just a little bit about how AURI got into industrial hemp. We looked at this crop probably early on in 2017 and decided to make a pretty big resource commitment to understanding the opportunities for Minnesota, really focused on the value-added space of industrial hemp. And I think you all received a report when you came in today that talks about some of the value-added opportunities and highlights a few companies in Minnesota that are working on industrial hemp. So we made a commitment. You'll hear from Harold and Riley a little later on in terms of the work that they've been doing from a literature review standpoint of going out around the country and attending different events to better understand what's happening with industrial hemp and how that applies to opportunities here within the state of Minnesota. You'll also hear a little bit more from Riley about a recent purchase that AURI made in cooperation with the Department of Agriculture. That is a fiber decorticator and finisher that will allow us to do some really unique R&D work, mainly on the fiber side. And then they'll talk about some of the other equipment we have as well that applies to value-added opportunities for the hemp overall. And then the final thing that I'll say is that our work is very collaborative at AURI. We are always looking for partners and opportunities. This event today, you'll hear from Tamara from AgriGrowth in a little bit, and from Commissioner Peterson at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. So we are working with a lot of entities to try to help fill some information gaps and move forward. We are also conducting private projects currently with several companies here in Minnesota on a confidential basis to help advance their opportunities. So we are wide open to having conversations around what your needs are and how we can go about facilitating them. So with that, I thank you again for being here, and I welcome Tamara Nelson to join me up here as well. We've been working with AgriGrowth on a number of events here in the last little while, and it's great to be able to have this event in conjunction with their big event that she'll speak a little bit about as well. Tamara.
Thank you, Shannon. Well, many thanks to Shannon and AURI for organizing this and allowing us to be on as a cooperator. We do have a rather large event tomorrow called the Ag and Food Summit. It's over at the Convention Center. We're really excited to have the governor coming this year to speak to us, and also Bill Northey, the undersecretary for, I got to get the name of the new agency though, I think it's Food Production and some Conservation. They changed it. So we're really excited to have them, as well as some leaders from the grocery industry, as well as Jonathan Cozy from Bank of America to talk about sort of global market trends. And then we will also have a luncheon program where we're going to talk about the M-Bold initiative, which is a group of CEOs in the agri-food space, as well as some organizations like AURI, University of Minnesota, and agri-growth, all working together to try to come up with some common solutions we can all help move forward. So if you're not familiar with agri-growth, we are an advocacy organization on behalf of the entire agri-food chain. We have members all the way from individual farmers to Fortune 500 companies, to cooperatives. We touch every segment of the ag industry, from lenders to university professors, again, to individual farmers, livestock, grain, and other. And we also have a lot of public relations, law firms, pretty much anyone that would touch agriculture, and we try to bring people together, have discussions on complex issues, and then represent those issues on behalf of the entire industry. We are also a convener, and so I guess in my role as a convener, I'm happy to be here. I have a very short history in the hemp area, although I should say my grandfather, if he was alive now, he'd be about 112. He always talked about hemp back in the days. He grew up down, actually in Bohemia, but grew up and lived down near New Ulm. I also spent 20 years in Illinois, where we dabbled in trying to get industrial hemp production for quite a long time. We had a representative to the hemp research, the National Hemp Research Board, that industrial hemp board, for many years, that the Farm Bureau advocated for him to be there so we could learn more about whether or not and how it would be an opportunity for farmers. And in Illinois, as you know, we have many opportunities. This year, I think mostly they should have been planting rice because they've had an awful lot of rain and they're not very happy. And I think they're accusing me of being part of the problem because I left and returned to my home state. But I did bring 50 inches of snow when I got here, and I'm delighted to be back. What I wanted to mention about Illinois, though, was we had a market in the sense that we had customers asking for the product. We had Budweiser, not for the beer, for the Clydesdales, bedding. For the Clydesdales, we had some automobile manufacturers looking to use it for stuffing in seats and other fabric needs. And we had some pharmaceutical companies looking for things like oil. But we were not really able to get a lot of production done just because of other rules and laws and permitting. And now that, like here, the Department of Ag is involved in Illinois, we're seeing opportunities move forward. But I hope you have a wonderful discussion today. If I do jet out early, it's because we have a pre-conference reception starting at 5, and we have an event in advance of that starting at 4. But I wish you certainly wonderful discussions. I will turn it back over to Shannon, and if we can ever be of assistance, just pop on our website or send me an email. I'm happy to help. I should also mention one of our board members, Steve Peterson, is here, and he's going to be one of your moderators today. Thanks, Shannon.
Excellent. Thank you, Tamara. And with that, I'd like to welcome Assistant Commissioner Commissioner Peterson to the stage today. My slippage there. It's been a pleasure for us to partner with Minnesota Department of Agriculture on so many fronts, and to see their leadership and their interest in advancing a pilot program for production and for marketing purposes. And we're very pleased that you could be here today, and with the expertise that the department will share with us today as well. Commissioner Peterson.
Thanks, Shannon. Well, it's really great to see the crowd. I was just looking at everybody as you come in. I think that it's neat. Many of you I've known for a very long time. Some of you I just met. And as commissioner, this has been really an interesting issue, because I think a lot of you have heard my story where I worked on this for many years. I started with Farmers Union almost 18 years ago, and every year we put this bill forward in the legislature, and every year it would pass unanimously. And we had, whether it was Governor Carlson, Governor Pawlenty, and even Governor Dayton the first time, it would pass both bodies. They'd both say, nope, can't do it. But we kept working on it. I always say it was like Charlie Brown lining up to kick the football. Every year I'd say, okay, let's do it again, you know, and I'm glad the chair of the Ag Committee, Gene Poppy's here too today, because, you know, I took people like that to say, okay, let's do it again, because we know people wanted it, you know, and so I think that's what's exciting for me, to see it come to fruition, come to see our bill pass. And, you know, I figured at one time I've testified over 25 times in favor of hemp before various committees. The thing I would say is interesting about that too is, you know, the market changes, the program changes. We go through a lot of ups and downs, growing pains. You know, as we went through that, we talked a lot about I went back and listened to a couple of the hearings. You know what we talked about? We talked about we're going to make paper, rope, bedding, all these different things. We really didn't talk about what we're using a lot of it for right now is CBD, and that's where the market is right now. But that wasn't even mentioned in a lot of the hearings. And so that's an interesting context just to think when we talk to legislators and ask us about a lot of the things that go on is very interesting. I want to thank our staff. Commissioner Place is here, and she represents and works a lot on this and leads our effort on this. Margaret, and a lot of you know that our staff works really hard on this issue. We take a lot of calls every day on such a wide variety, from growers, companies, law enforcement, city councils, the general public. Everybody wants to know. And so it's important to thank your legislators for the funding we get, because as we get funding for our program and we build our program, that's important because it helps fund the program. It also helps us keep our fees reasonable. And so that's another piece I want to make. I also want to thank Governor Walz. You know, Governor Walz has been a good supporter of hemp in Congress, and we were glad to get him out to a hemp farm. We went out to John Strophus's farm in late August, and he got to see it firsthand. But we thought that was really important to highlight the industry and that it was growing. And so, you know, as we continue to see, it is just exciting. Our mission is to grow agriculture in Minnesota, and I think that we're doing that. And I'm really excited as I look across the state. If you look at the map, I forget what it is, they can tell me like 80 of 87 counties are growing hemp. Is that right? And you know, when we had the conference at our department in January, I think it was my second week as commissioner, we expected like maybe 100 people. Who was at that conference? Because there was a lot of people. I know a lot of people were there. And they kept saying, I decided not to come to the conference right away. I'd come a little bit later. And I went to St. Cloud, but the staff texted me and said, we might have a little problem. I think we're going to have more like 200 people. And I said, okay, that's fine. A few minutes later, a text that said, might be like 300 people. And then we ended up with about 400 people. But our staff worked really good and really worked on it. But I thought when I came and I looked, you know, at the crowd, I was really interested when I finally got there and I looked to see who was in the crowd. It was kind of amazing, you know, because I would be like, wow, that guy wants to grow hemp, or that family's going to try hemp. And I asked them afterwards, and they said, yeah, that's you know, something new. And my line has been, it's not just the hippie farmers from Pine County that wanted to grow it. So, you know, and that's cool, but we're glad to have them too. So, you know, a few other things I just want to mention is that I'm glad Minnesota, you know, and like I said, I'm going to keep saying we're going to go through growing pains. We want to work with you. You know, I really value our other states. Went to our NASDAs, our Association of State Departments of Agriculture, and went about a month ago. And my favorite picture I got back was in one of the meetings. I had the Nebraska secretary on one side and the South Dakota secretary on the other side. And they both had sat next to me in this meeting on purpose. And guess what they want to talk about? Is if you that follow it, no, those states are having challenges, you know, and so South Dakota, no program, interested. Now they have a committee, by the way. We help give them all their ideas. Nebraska, they gave 10 permits out, and it turned out to be, they had a lottery auction, you know, for those 10 permits, and so it was really interesting for them to, you know, listen and learn and see what we're doing. So you all know that we started with the 2016 with 6 growers and 38 acres. And this year, we have over 700 grower and processor applicants in the program with nearly 8,000 acres and 400,000 square feet of indoor growth space. And so we expect that to continue to grow. The last piece I just want to mention is our listening sessions. And so we are in the process of finalizing our plan for our submission to the USDA. We are beginning our expedited rulemaking that will outline the specifics of that state program, including licensing and testing requirements. Part of that expedited rulemaking was that we would hear from growers, processors, and stakeholders. So most of you have seen that we're holding a series of discussions around the state. Their listening sessions be held Monday, November 18th in Detroit Lakes, Wednesday, November 20th at the MDA offices in St. Paul, and Thursday the 21st in Mankato. And so I do encourage you to attend. That was the promise we made to the legislators, and very important, and we want your feedback. And so thank you for having me today, and thank you, AURI and AgriGrowth.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan Scogan to kick us off. But just as a note for today, we want this to be interactive as well. We've really made it into a panel discussion to encourage questions and answer and participation, because I think there's a lot of questions, and hopefully we have some experts here that can start to fill in some of those gaps for information. So thank you again, AgriGrowth. Thank you, Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And Dan, I'll turn it over to you.